My name is Brian Hendricks. I'm a sophomore at Purdue University, and I'm majoring in construction, engineering, and management. This summer, I completed an internship with a company called Envoy. Envoy is a small to mid-market construction management firm out of Indianapolis, Indiana. They also work in other fields, such as real estate development, but my internship focused solely on the construction management side. So I spent 12 weeks with Envoy. The first 3 were mostly in the office, and the last 9 were spent on site. So like I said, for the first 3 weeks, I was mostly in the office. Here I learned how to navigate Procore, which is the app that they use to store all their information on all their projects to keep it organized. I spent a few days on one of their construction sites in Greenwood, Indiana, where they were building a fire station. I was introduced to the early construction processes at the fire station in Greenwood because they were only a few months into the project at that point, so I was able to learn a lot there. And I briefly learned about construction scheduling because my mentor would sit in on owners' meetings and contractor meetings while I was following him, and so he would always run down the schedule with them, and so I was briefly introduced to construction scheduling. So for the next 9 weeks, I spent on site at a place called the Spark Apartments, and the Spark Apartments were a high-end multi-purpose apartment complex in Fishers, Indiana. The bottom floor was mostly retail space and the leasing office, and the second, third, and fourth floor were all high-end apartments. And they also had a very interesting courtyard in the middle of it all. So it was here where I got most of my on-site experience. I worked very closely with the superintendent and their 2 site managers while I was there. And mostly my responsibility while I was there was to create and manage the punch list while I was there of the 4th and 5th phase, because this project was broken down into 5 phases, each like a different section of the building. And so when I first arrived, they were finishing up section 4, or phase 4 of it. And so I was responsible with creating the punch list for that and managing it, making sure that everything on it was completed by the contractors. And then I also did the same thing for the 5th phase when the time came. So like I said, most of my site experience came from the Spark Apartments. The Spark Apartments themselves are in Fishers, Indiana. It was approximately a $50 million project. It was in the public sector. And mostly I was responsible with, like I said, managing the punch list, but I also did various manual labor tasks to help out the superintendent with whatever he needed, such as drilling truss screws onto all 4 floors in the 5th phase. I took inventory of the cabinets and certain appliances that were going to go into the rooms at a future date, but mostly managing the punch list. So a little bit more on the Spark Apartments. It was kind of my opportunity to take my conceptual knowledge of construction and take it to a more physical understanding, because it was here where I really saw a bunch of new machines being used and seeing how they were used and how they were applied. And so this was a great opportunity to kind of advance my understanding and take it to a more personal level. I'd say my greatest triumph while I was doing the internship was learning as much about the industry as I possibly could, because prior to this internship I've had very minimal construction experience, so it was very eye-opening, and I was very green and very naive going into this, and luckily Envoy took note of that, and they made sure to expose me to as much as they possibly could in the 12-week period. Some of the lessons that I learned while I was with Envoy was what skills are required in a good construction manager, such as like good communication and things of that nature. How to navigate Procore. It's my understanding that a lot of companies use Procore, and so the fact that I kind of can work my way through that is a very valuable skill to move forward with. I learned how to create and manage a punch list. And most importantly, I really learned how to be both an office and a field person, because when I was there, I always noticed that there was a bit of strain and frustration between some of the people who never left the office and the people who were never in the office. And I kind of learned how to be a good medium between the two, as I spent kind of almost a half and half in the field and in the office. So I kind of learned how to work with both people, and I think that's probably the most important lesson that I can take away from the internship. So thank you very much for listening.